David Carlin,
Here.
Lynn Underwood Segley,
Here.
Carly Holder,
Here.
Cy Cam Savoravon,
Here.
Angela McCalla,
Here.
Jean Marina Napolitano.
Here.
There's a quorum present, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Has anybody signed up for the citizens forum this evening?
No, they have not.
Is there anybody additional who would like to speak that might not have signed up just yet? Okay, hearing none.
Okay, motion to approve the consent calendar in its entirety with the exception of number 14 and number 15.
Second.
Are there any comments or questions?
Mr.
Here.
Chairman,
Yes, Councilor Carlin?
forgive me, please. Regarding the consent calendar, the bingo licensing or the Irish American Club,
Which number is that?
That's item D.
It's in the front.
may I pull that as well, please?
Item D. Okay, so motion to remove 14, 15, and item D. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. This brings us back to item B14.
Jean.
Yes,
Councilor Napolitano?
Well, let me make a motion to approve. A motion to approve the Newport Design Festival LLC doing business as Newport Design Week, 115 Narragansett Avenue, July 25th, 26th, and 27th from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilor Napolitano?
yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When going through the docket, I had a concern about item number 14 on the consent calendar. Is there anybody here that's representing that request?
If you could, please
Okay.
approach. And please identify both your name,
Okay.
where you're from, and your connection to the application.
I really find it confusing. I've always
If you could
been-
just briefly identify yourself for the records.
Sorry,
Okay.
I'm Carol Swift. I have an interior design business in Newport.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, Carol, are you the applicant?
Yes, two of us, Ann Fairfax and myself, started Newport Design.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm somewhat confused as I've always considered Narragansett Avenue residential, which precludes most, if not all, commercial activities. City records show it as an R60 residential zone. I'm hesitant to approve this Newport Design Festival as it doesn't coincide with my current understanding of a residential neighborhood requesting to hold a commercial event over a 3-day period in July. I believe this neighborhood to be residential in all aspects and should be protected from more intensified commercial uses. In checking with the status of the property, I found it's listed under an LLC. And Narragansett Avenue is a stately street, a main thoroughfare for residents and visitors alike. It shouldn't be populated with commercial activities. I will be voting against this as I just don't believe it's proper in a residential area. I read through the application. I understand the number of people involved and they have their off-street parking there, but it feels like the camel's nose under the tent, which is something that we did not foresee during Airbnb and when neighborhoods were being challenged with parking and neighborhoods were dark at the point. I just have a real concern about this particular event.
Is it my turn?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
You would love it. It's going to be a series of 15 lectures, starting in the morning, ending in the afternoon, in the home, in the ballroom. That house has a large ballroom. It's a small number of people. The lectures are fascinating. It's really more academic. You mentioned the word festival. There's no tents, there's no music, there's no catering. People showing up who take design seriously. They'll meet each other and hear great lectures about there should have been a design week in Newport all along. This is where it all began. So it's quite fabulous and small. And the reason we want to do it there the first year, we're experimenting, we're keeping it small, we're not sure what to expect. We have people flying in from Britain to speak, but we don't want to get in over our heads. If it's successful this year and managed, we'll look for a larger venue next year. But we really thought it through, and it would be lovely to use the ballroom. It's a lecture place. It seats 200 people, I think, the ballroom. We're not going that big. We're keeping it small.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
I just have a question. Will people be paying to attend this festival?
Yes, but all the money is for the Historical Society. There's no payment for the venue. There's no other profit. It's going to, we decided to wrap it around the antique show. So it's a lecture on Thursday, Friday, everyone goes to the antique show, and then we wrap up by noon on Saturday. And so some of the lectures are about the antiques. It's enhancing that. And then all of the profits are going to the Historical Society.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Councilor Romley.
Mrs. Swift, I think it's a very interesting event, but certainly concerns about an event that might be viewed as a commercial event or a large-scale event in a residential neighborhood are real. I'd want to understand a bit further. Is the owner of the property being compensated in any way to host this event?
No.
So he or she is volunteering their property
Yeah, as
for a nonprofit event.
this is sheer enthusiasm.
Okay.
They are classical architects. I do interior design. We are bringing, we hope, interest to the current design community. For instance, Saturday afternoon and Sunday, we have on the schedule to go and visit the other design shops, have an architectural tour. We're not stepping on the Preservation Society. It's a slightly different angle, but it's all academic, is really what we're doing. This isn't,
Sure. So
it's interesting.
thank you so much. I'll summarize my personal thoughts.
Would you like to come?
I may. I'll summarize my personal thoughts. If this were,
We don't have many spaces.
if this were an event where the owner of the property were being compensated, I would not be supporting this application. If this were an event, please let me finish. If this were an event where the proceeds were going to a for-profit entity versus a nonprofit, I would not be supporting this application. However, since it is a nonprofit event where the proceeds are going to a very good and worthy nonprofit in our city, the Historical Society, and the owner is volunteering to host this at no compensation, for those reasons, I will be supporting this application.
And that is the case. And it will say that we haven't released the website, but it will say that clearly.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Councilor Holder.
Mr. Thanks for coming up tonight. Looking past this event with that piece of property there, they are advertising that they're a wedding venue.
I think that's misrepresented. They're not. There were photos. I know for a fact that on that site, there are photos using the house. People have used it for photo shoots. And I think once they had, maybe it was something with stage for food, but they never intend to have a wedding there. In fact, they already checked with zoning that they should not and will not. Anne has been very specific about that.
Well,
So I think
I hope
that's
she knows that there's
that site's not promoting weddings.
well, there's for a fact, there are websites that say, contact us for having a wedding at this venue.
Wow.
Mhm.
All right,
So that-
I'll
that's-
report that back. I know there are photos there from a photo shoot, but they,
Yeah, so that's where the concern comes in about the commercializing of a residential property. So that.
well,
that-
yeah,
that's-
I'm pretty certain she told me that she already checked with zoning and they don't intend to have weddings.
Well, they can't have weddings, but
Yeah.
they're advertising for them. So that's where my concern comes in, that
I
they're trying
don't know
to do
that for a
things
fact. I
without
haven't seen that.
city
so-
approval.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Councilor McCalla.
I actually just think that understanding that this is a lecture series that is going on, and I don't necessarily think that this person or your event should be consequenced, or it should probably be a deeper discussion for the person who owns the property. So I'm gonna support it. I don't think you're gonna go wild over inside lecture
nothing wild.
series, no music, correct?
No music, nothing wild. And in fact, it's every 45 minutes, another lecture. They're all great ones. Edith Wharton, Michael Carter's coming from Boston. We had someone coming from Greece to talk about Nancy Lancaster. Our Paul Miller is going to do the history of Newport's position in the history of design. So we have some really good things lined up.
Yeah, and I would also assume if it made it onto the docket for the event, do we have any legal issues that we're worried about? No? Yeah.
Nothing's been raised to me.
Okay.
Mr. Bean, just a legal question. If there's no compensation to the owner of the property and all proceeds that are collected are for nonprofit purposes, is there any way to characterize this as a commercial activity?
I mean, no, I mean, if you take away all of the profit or where money can be, money's going in different directions, compensating different entities, people, yeah, you're looking at a commercial setting. It is a special event. It is the whole idea behind a special event. It's a one-time event, not to say they can't come back for this event again. So you have control over that. Zoning looks at it and on. So I don't myself have any legal issues about it.
Thank you. And I think with that clarification, because I want to recognize Councilor Napolitano's concerns. Those are very real concerns. I agree with them. No commercial event should be allowed in a residential neighborhood like this, but given your opinion on it, I think my feelings on supporting this are reinforced. Thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Carlin.
I will yield to my colleagues if they have additional follow-up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you to my colleagues, and thank you very much for being here this evening. Nobody, may I, through the chair, just in case there's a question? I don't anticipate one, but I probably shouldn't leave the podium yet. I appreciate all the feedback from my colleagues, and I appreciate the mayor, former Mayor Napolitano, and Councilor Holder and Councilor Segley for your comments, as well as, of course, Councilor McCullough and Councilor Aramli, who appear to be ready to support this. Nobody disagrees with the wonderful nature of what you are offering, what will be offered. Nobody disagrees with who will benefit from the proceeds of this event, the Newport Historical Society. What I object to is the precedent that is being set here. I have received, as the third ward councilor who represents the proposed location, I have received much feedback, all 100% in opposition.
Right, can I?
I don't think, that's why I asked you
Can I
to stay
say
at the podium. Would I
I
apologize. May I finish? And please, the mayor will give you, the chair will give you all opportunity. This is a residential area. There may be no legal concerns here, as our great solicitor has said, but this is still intrusive upon the neighborhood, sets a bad precedent, and in my humble opinion, it is not appropriate for the area. Please consider holding this elsewhere. And I urge my colleagues, help me please
Can I
on this particular item. Help me to reject this and help the many third ward residents who are opposed to this application. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Swift.
So I did see the email thread and I did see the concerns. construction is so awful for everybody. They did a beautiful timber frame garage, and they had a team. I noticed in the email thread, the contractors are living there. Well, they came from England. They're these talented timber framers that lived in their home and built this gorgeous garage. It's stately. And the neighbors are complaining. I saw something about the workers are smoking pot. I know the workers, they were not smoking pot, and the British, and it's not legal in Britain, they don't smoke pot. The back driveway is really annoying to the neighbors. I know that because I know the people directly across the street. But that construction has more or less ended. I certainly think they could be more considerate asking this team to wrap up sooner. There's a new team now finishing it. The ones from England left. And I get it that you have to be quiet around your neighbors. So some of those I'm going to go back to Ann and Richard and report. No issue. It's always, but a lot of those things are not accurate. And so it isn't fair to trump up. They love their home. They love their neighborhood. They're classical architects. They're taking care of it. The neighbors were so upset that they didn't mow the lawn, but what they were doing is letting the field have butterflies and birds. And they were intentionally doing that. People complained to them that they hadn't mowed. They did mow edging strips, but things like that get neighbors all upset. I know their personality and I know how much they love this property. I don't think they will abuse the neighborhood at all. And I'll go back to them. They have not seen the email thread. So I will go back to them with what the neighbors are saying.
Mr. Chair, I think one of the big concerns is that this is held over 3 day, it's being held over 3 days.
Yeah.
And, when people have a function that will benefit a certain organization, usually it's one party and it's over. But I think that looking at this, having it on 3 days is very intensive for the neighbors. So,
It would be, you show up at 9 and you leave the house at the end of the day, 5. On Friday, you leave to go to the antique show. And on Saturday, it ends after about noon.
well, I
So
would,
it's technically 2.5, and then we're encouraging everybody to go into the other stores and the other design businesses in town, do
Right.
the walks around town, architecture.
right. I would suggest that in the future that this event take place somewhere outside of a residential zone.
Well, we're experimenting this year. We hope it's really popular. People fly to Nashville, Birmingham, all over for Design Week. We're experimenting, and then we will find a proper venue. But we didn't want to start that big. We don't know. And the expenses, we don't, have all the expenses.
How many people do you see coming over the 3-day period?
Well, as all things, we're hoping 60 will come, but we don't know.
60 over the complete 3-day period?
Well, it's probably the same people the whole time.
Okay.
Because it's a series of 15 lectures.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all really good. You wouldn't want to miss any of them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, if you could, just to bring it back, why at this home? Why at a home in a residential neighborhood when we have so many other venues, whether it's Salve or whether it's, the other great properties along that area that are prepared for, hosting level of commercial activities? Was this particular property selected?
Because they have a ballroom and it's perfect. It's easy. It was easy for us not to have to schedule with people. Financially, it was easy. We didn't have to pay money that we don't have yet. And we also thought people would enjoy being in one of these Newport homes, to sit there in this beautiful ballroom and listen to these lectures. It's rather a nice vibe. Now, we do think it'll be popular, and we have several ideas up our sleeve for next year, but we didn't want to get ahead of ourselves. I mean, there are lots of places in Newport. We can move it next year if it's popular.
Council Holder?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a quick question. So you said it's a ticketed event, correct? You're selling tickets to this event?
Yes.
All right, and so how many tickets are you selling? Yeah, how many tickets are you selling if you're saying
We
there's gonna be
haven't
60
gone
people a
live,
day?
of course, because we
Okay.
haven't crossed all our, we just finished our scheduling, and now we just have to confirm all the speakers. We have most of them. And we haven't even attempted to sell tickets.
Okay.
And
Just-
again, we're wrapping it around the antique show, so we don't want to step on any of their toes. And we'll give them first dibs of their people coming to the lectures.
I just don't, I think it's a great event, to be honest with you.
Mm.
And I think it's gonna be really nice and it's gonna fit, the theme of Newport. And just based on the application alone, I can be comfortable in giving you, my permission. It's just going forward. I just want to make sure that the owners of the house know that it is by any means, this can't be used as commercial property. Just so they're not going forward. I never want to look into the future and expect somebody that's gonna, break the rules and ordinances of the city of Newport. So I kind of like vote for things on their merit. So just let them know, again, going forward,
And
hopefully there's not gonna be any weddings.
Anne and Rich,
events.
I'm going to say again, are classical architects, and they're both on urban planning boards in Florida. They're really concerned with rules, regulations, and cities.
Yeah.
So they're not that sort. This was just really our easy way of setting this up. She has the house. It was a perfect place. We figured, we don't even know who our clients are going to be, if that's what you call them. We think it's probably people in town. It's also the folk festival weekend. So we didn't want to get too jammed with that. So we think it might be regular residents and their house guests that are the people that come. We don't even know that. So we're experimenting, but it will be a high quality experiment in a beautiful place.
Mr. Chair, I'm just wondering, would the owners be available to come before the council to discuss these matters?
It's a little challenging.
Why is that?
You don't think I'm not representing them very well?
Well, I think that we need to talk with the
Um,
actual owner.
They are in Palm Beach for the season, but I'm sure one or two would fly up if they need.
So they
to.
don't live in Newport full time.
No, but they do come up for events and things. So they're primarily Florida residents. And they work in Manhattan, so they come up for things in Manhattan, and then they will come up to Newport for things. So I'm sure if it's necessary, they would do it. Anne loves Zoom, if anyone wants to talk to her by Zoom.
Can't do it by Zoom.
Yeah, I think this will be a terrific event, knowing the quality of the conversations that you all host. The challenge that we're having here as a council right now is the property owner, per our zoning department, has advertised this property as an event venue. And there are multiple sources where that's been the case. And so I think the hesitancy that you're hearing from the council, we know this will be a terrific event. We understand that the impact of this immediate event could be minimal in this community. It is that this is being used, that you are being used as a lead-in to turn this residential property into a commercial venue. And given the portrayal by the property owners of that being their intent, from both the construction they've undertaken, but also the advertising they put out there in the public realm, I think that's what we're grappling with. And I'm sorry that you're having to be the person that's
I understand.
fielding
that.
those questions. And that's why I think hearing, if this is something that at least I would be, considering,
Right,
you'd have to hear from the property owner on this because of
Okay.
the nature of the
right.
preceding activity that's occurred. And to the earlier questions, our zoning department, they have acknowledged that this is within the realm of where the council should have jurisdiction, but we should be exercising discretion in accordance with, this is that gray area of approval. The reason why it requires a permit is because of some of these judgments we're trying to get at. So just to give you some context, we like I said, acknowledge the value. We're very appreciative of the organizational work you're putting into this. We're trying to make sure that you are not getting used for the purposes of converting a residential property into a commercial one.
Well, I didn't have enough time between reading those neighbor emails and this meeting tonight to have Anne change her Facebook presentation. I agree, it's misleading. But I didn't have time to say, you can't have both, you're gonna have to. But I think she would totally understand and change that.
It's just, it's I appreciate that she'd be willing to do that for this particular event, but when you have a property owner that has poured likely millions of dollars into renovating a property, preparing it for the use of commercial purposes, has paid to advertise it as such,
Right.
even if that were a momentary, removal, I think hearing directly from the property owner would be the only thing that I could think of that would get us to a reasonable comfort point.
Okay.
And I can't speak for the entire council, but just as I'm listening to the council's feedback, as I'm weighing it, it again is very separate from your application, but our concern is that the application is being used for an alternative purpose.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Councilor McCallum.
why don't we continue this application? I think that there may be an opportunity to be able to talk to the owners themselves. I certainly understand the unique position that's happening here. But I'm just wondering if the council would be open to sort of tabling this, because I'm also sympathetic to, um, seeing the show as well. And, yeah.
I'm not sure.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr.
It
Chairman,
would be meaningful to get approval for this one event. Maybe we could work a deal. If we got approval for this event, and I promise she'll take down the Facebook site that indicates she does weddings.
Do you think you get an affidavit from the property owner never to use this property for a commercial purpose moving forward?
Say that again.
Do you think you could get an affidavit from the property owner that they will not use this property for a commercial purpose moving forward?
I'm not sure what falls under commercial. I'd have to be clear on,
Okay.
on all the things. For instance, are having an academic, as you know, they were involved with making cities livable,
Hmm.
which is another, the word is event, but it's not really an event. Again, it's another intelligent academic meeting of people. So does that fall under this, where they wouldn't be able to hope? This falls in more in concert with that.
I think in short, what we're getting at is we don't want a wedding venue getting shoehorned into a residential neighborhood. And I think that's the council's concern here. And that short of hearing that directly from the property owner, it's going to be difficult to get this council comfortable with that.
You'll let me know how to make that happen?
I think what's being considered in the moment, I know we have two other councilors comment, is a continuance of this item to our next meeting, which would be February 14th,
Okay.
at which if the property owner could appear, we could at least take into consideration whether that's something the council could get comfortable with. But that's just what Councilor McCall had put on the table. I have in my periphery here two other councilors who are jumping in to make comment on this. If it's okay with you, Councilor Carl, I'm going to give Councilor Napolitano the first word.
Absolutely.
yeah, I can appreciate what you're describing and what you want to do. However, I think, in the middle of July, a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Narragansett Avenue, and it is a route for people to go down to visit mansions and stuff. I really thought I understood the zoning properly, that there would not be commercial entities or commercial activity in a residential neighborhood. And if we're too vague on it, I'd like to see it tightened up. I've watched families leave Newport, and not the big estates, from the smaller homes, and people don't have parking and they can't afford the houses now, and they're only occupied 3 months a year. It's very discouraging for me. I would, if we're truly adhering to our zoning regulations, then I think everyone has to abide in them. And they have to we have to have the ability to allow, there's a number of neighbors here. I've heard a lot of complaints from you, receiving neighbors' complaints. I haven't had the neighbors directly. If they're complaining to you, have you gotten back to them?
Well, they're not my neighbors. Personally, I would have had a cocktail party by now. But Ann and Richard are really busy and they haven't done that with their neighbors.
I'm sure they're all very busy too.
And start doing construction. We all know that. I do construction for a living. I know how much everyone hates it. It's awful, but it's almost done too. So,
I knew nothing about any of that, and it just seemed like an adjunct to the whole issue of,
well, this is, if you were lived across the street and people came at 9 in the morning and didn't leave till the afternoon, I don't think you'd think that's very intrusive. So I don't see that this is creating a neighborhood issue at all for this event. Things like construction get everybody upset. This isn't that. People will be indoors, in the ballroom, sitting in the seat, listening to lectures.
and I think that's well and good, but we have locations, other places where that could have been done. I guess that's the point. That wouldn't be in violation of what I thought was a restriction in a residential neighborhood.
Well, it is a beautiful home that people.
I agree. I totally agree.
So we thought it was a really good idea and we ran with it. But I understand.
Mr. Chair.
Uh,
I-
Yeah, okay, yes, Councilor Romley.
There's just one element of this conversation that I'm not entirely comfortable with. It feels like if this event, identical to everything you've proposed, identical to the location, identical in every way, except the owner of this property hadn't been advertising their property for commercial purposes, that you would be sailing right through this conversation, because the ability to have a nonprofit event at a private residence is not a precedent that I would like to set. That is something we don't want in this city. What's disturbing me here is that I feel this event is being penalized for something different, and something else that is happening at this property that clearly this council and the neighbors are not happy with. And I support all the comments of my counselors here, by the way. These are legitimate concerns. But I'm concerned that we're intermingling and unfairly penalizing you by related intermingling situations, but that are truly separate. You have nothing to do with the owner of this particular property using it for other purposes. That's all I have for comment.
I think we could fix that, though.
Councilor Carlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your dealing with these difficult questions and this issue as a whole. Since you are not the owner of the property, you've been put in a somewhat uncomfortable position. By the way, cocktail parties are fantastic, especially the cocktail part.
What is?
Cocktail parties.
Yeah, you need to have the
but-
neighbors over. I mean, it's so easy to,
Yeah,
know.
and I realize that the couple is very busy. So is everybody else in attendance here this evening. I would be willing to support my colleague Angela McCullough, Councilor McCullough's suggestion to table this. I would not be willing to support a continuance. We have a very fine city clerk who would be happy to take a new application based on any parameters that might be dealt with the neighbors, with the council, with our city solicitor. But I, once again, would urge my colleagues to support me and those who oppose this. Help the residents in the third ward who oppose this, the neighbors, and please vote no and vote, I urge, only to table this, not to continue it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair.
Councilor Romley.
And my comment is to Councilor Carlin. Councilor Carlin, would you accept an affidavit, as the chairman suggested, from the owners of the property that they will engage in no further or future commercial activities on the property, nor shall they advertise those activities in any way? Would you accept that as a condition for approving this application?
Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Carlin.
I would not. I appreciate that, Councilor Romley. The question is before us and it relates to a specific issue, not to any possible future issues.
It's fair. Councilor McCall, you've been very patient.
I think Councilor Carlin had made a suggestion to table this item. and not continue it, correct?
I apologize. I would only suggest that if you were to make a motion to either continue or table, my suggestion is there is a request for the council to approve a calendar item before us. I would urge my colleagues to vote no.
So we're gonna take a vote on this.
Unless there is a motion to table the item. I would like to move to table this item.
Second.
Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is tabled.
So can you explain what that means to me?
Council Carlin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you again for your patience. A motion to table means the item is no longer debatable. It is no longer considered by the council this evening or in the future until it is brought up, if it is brought up again.
So we can reapply. Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. No, and by the way, and just also to reiterate, thank you for putting the time and energy into organizing an intellectually driven event like this. We would love to see this event in Newport. We just need to figure out what an appropriate venue would be or the appropriate constraints around such venue in the future. So,
Thank you.
thanks.
Motion to approve Historic Wharves doing business as Newport International Boat Show, September 12th through the 15th, 2024, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Romley?
Yes, Council Romley, this is the boat show item.
Yes, is there a representative from the applicant here?
My name is Lisa Knowles. I live in Middletown and I'm the show director.
Can you lift the microphone up a little bit? Thank you.
How's
You can
that?
just pull it right up. Okay.
We're good. We're fine.
We're
Good.
fine.
Sorry.
Lisa,
Romley.
thank you so much. I just have a very few short questions, and I want to start by saying I think that the boat show is one of the, many iconic events we have in Newport. It's great for the city. I think we are good for the boat show. I'm happy it's here. I've been to it before. You guys do a great job. Just for my edification, how many attendees came to the boat show last year, and what was the peak daily attendance at the show?
Last year's attendance was roughly 38,000.
38?
Yeah, we have portions of our show that are not gated. It's hard to fence it off, so it's a little bit of a guess. Generally speaking, Saturday is our busiest day. We'll get somewhere around 7,000 attendees. This past year was a little different because of the hurricane.
Mhm.
So actually, our attendance was 50% what it typically is.
Thank you. And the last question, the setup for the boat show tends to be very difficult on America's Cup Avenue for daily traffic. Typically, we see a full lane of America's Cup shut down for a number of days. Is there, and I know you've been doing this for a long time, and you've probably looked at ways to stage the show with minimal impact, but is there anything that can be done, any way of staging this show that is a little less impactful in terms of closing lanes in one of our busiest streets? And I recognize there are limitations in that area in the amount of loading docks, but is there some review you guys can take, to see, is there any way to maybe pull some of those trucks off the street and maybe into some of those inner loading zones that exist along the waterfront there?
Yeah, I know, it's awful. And there are so many large trucks and
Yeah.
forklifts and things. And, running the show in downtown is tricky because we could pull these vehicles onto Commercial Wharf. And then you've got all the condos and that traffic. So Um, you know, we kind of played Tetris for 2 weeks, trying to move vehicles here and, and the police do a great job, but you're right, it can be overwhelming on the Wednesday, particularly when most of the exhibitors show up as well. Yeah, it's something we discuss every year. How we
Yes.
can possibly make it
I
less.
appreciate the challenges you have with our particular geography of downtown. Consider it a request. You have my vote and approval for this application. As I said, it's a wonderful show. I just leave you with a request to try to work as closely as possible with our police department and city manager just to do the best we can to keep America's Cup from being stopped up too much. Thank you so much.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried.
Motion to approve a bingo license daily Irish American Athletic Club, 642 Thames Street, January 28th through January 24th. Do I have a second?
Second.
Council Carlin?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Is the applicant here this evening?
You just stepped out.
I'll pause until until the applicant comes back, and
don't think
with your
he's coming.
permission, we'll move on to the next item, knowing that we're giving a courtesy to the applicant.
Oh,
Right.
he's back.
Oh, he's back? Sir, is there any chance you were here regarding the bingo license? Terrific. Couple questions for you from our council. If you could please just identify yourself.
Yes.
I'm the manager at the Irish American Club.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you for being here, Joe. Can you
Thank you.
tell us about what this is all about and why you need the special use permit?
We were only instructed that we need a special use permit. We believe that this falls under the province of having a DJ or having any other entertainment that we would ordinarily have during the day at the.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes, please continue.
I'd like to ask a question of the city clerk, please.
Please proceed.
Madam Clerk, what is the typical, how does the city council and the city typically handle these type of requests when there is a gambling activity involved? I noticed that no state police license was applied for, or state police permission was not applied for. Is that in fact a requirement, even if we are not, or if the applicant is not handing out cash, so to speak, but the equivalent of cash, prizes that have a cash value? Thank you.
So anytime anybody applies for a bingo license, they are advised they need to get permission from the state police, and we ask for that before we issue the license. In my experience, the only other bingo licenses that we've done in the last 15 years is for the Park Home Senior Center. And that's an ongoing, so this is the first of its kind that I've seen.
Thank you very much,
You're welcome.
Clerk Swistak. Another question, if I might. The Park Home Senior Center is very much a nonprofit government or quasi-government authority, yes? This application troubles me. Can I ask, I don't have it in front of me, did the applicant submit a request for state police approval?
I don't believe not with their application. I have not seen one.
I appreciate what you said, Madam Clerk, and I would ask my colleagues, I'm certainly open, unlike the last request that was before us that I spoke on. I'm certainly open to a continuance here, but until such time that the Rhode Island State Police offers an opinion on this application, especially since, as Clerk Swistak said, it's the first of its kind, I would urge a no vote or a continuance, given what I just said.
Mr. Chair,
Council Holder.
could we have the gentleman give us some more information on what they're doing?
So all prizes are being offered by the person that is promoting the event. So that person is providing the awards for whatever person gets for hitting bingo. So there are no real gambling instances. And our contact with the state police in our contact with the state police, they have informed us that since we are not offering cash prizes, since we are offering gifts to people who are getting bingo, that this does not fall under the province of the state police overseeing any kind of gambling incidents.
Is this one of the same local promoters that do it at other places as well? Do you know?
Yes.
Okay.
If we're talking about Melanie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Talking about what? I'm sorry, can you repeat what? If you
So there is an MC who promotes the events,
Mhm.
and she provides the prizes at the events.
Okay,
And I'm not familiar with her doing it in the city of Newport, but I know that she does it in other cities. So she brings the prizes for the bingo with her. She acts as an MC in conjunction with a DJ, which falls under the province of our entertainment license. All we're asking for is an admission fee to help alleviate the cost of paying for a DJ/MC to coordinate the event and
right. And this is just for one night,
yeah.
period. Are you planning on doing this more often or?
We don't know. We want
Okay.
to see how it goes.
Okay.
Consider doing it in the future or other events.
Mm-hmm.
We would like to have quarterly events for our members
Mhm.
and their guests.
Mhm.
It's one of the things that we're considering doing to promote business at the Irish American. This is basically a trial and error event.
Okay.
Irish
Mr. Chair.
American.
Counselor McCalla.
I just want to ask the city solicitor, again, given the information about this, event, what's your opinion?
I mean, they've explained, they've gone to the state police. So whatever requirement to hold a bingo, game,
Yes.
the state police has said it doesn't fall under their purview, their jurisdiction to license this or to regulate it. So under this, I think it's more of a.
Oh, here.
It's here for a bingo license. So it's here based on the activity, almost like entertainment.
So your position is that the city doesn't see any further action needs to be done?
Is that different than?
And that's up to the
that?
council, but no, in terms of licensure.
Or I should say, is the city satisfied with the current application as is?
I would
Here.
defer to the clerk, but I myself haven't heard anything, something else.
That's the same date.
Okay.
The only thing that I would ask for from you is, do you have something in writing from the state police that says you do not need their permission for
I
this?
do not have that in my possession. I'm here in lieu of the owner of the bar tonight, who is ill. So I do not have that in my possession. Obviously, we're up against a calendar deadline with it being this Sunday, the 28th. How much time would you be willing to give us to provide you with that documentation?
Oh, right up until the day of the event. I
Okay.
would just appreciate something before we issue you the license.
So what you're looking for is a statement from the state police that says that they're not even willing to consider this because there's no cash being
Something
distributed
along those lines, yeah.
at this particular event.
Mhm.
All right, I can get to work on that. How do we proceed tonight before the event?
Well,
Mr. Chairman,
Counselor Carlin.
thank you again to our clerk, Ms. Swistak. And I say this with great respect.
Thank you.
I'm a supporter of business, always have been.
Thank you.
That's not our problem, that you're up against a deadline. You saw the Newport, the International Boat Festival come for a license, whose occurrence is many, many months down the line. If the city clerk, may I, through you, Mr. Chairman? If the police chief I don't think there's any reason to bring the chief up, but if the chief has no opposition to this, and if the clerk's need, which I support fully, can be met, I would be willing to support this license.
All right.
I urge you to, next time you have it, let us know a lot in advance. But if the chief, through you, Mr. Chairman, if the chief has no objection.
Support the clerk's request.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, there's a motion. It's been seconded. It's on the table. All those in favor?
well, I need to make a motion to approve contingent upon presenting the state police
Second.
Comments?
letter.
Or is a statement from the state police that they do not even want to consider this a gambling event
Right.
because there is no cash prize
Yes.
being presented.
Yes.
All right.
And that the clerk can sort out
Yes.
what that format needs to be in terms of formality, right?
Thank you.
Great. Motion, amended motion, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could just after the meeting
Or tomorrow.
or tomorrow morning's fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Motion to approve mobile food cart license renewal, the Newport Lobster Shack Group Cooperative, 150 Long Wharf. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion to approve a vittling license renewal, MMKJR, doing business as A1 Pizza, 306 Broadway. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried.
Motion to approve a vittling license renewal, Ashmart, 2 Carroll Avenue. Do I have a second?
Second.
Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried.
Motion to approve vittling license renewal, Bellevue Boards, 84 Broadway. Do I have a second?
Second.
Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried.
Motion to approve a vittling license renewal, the Nitro Bar at 404 Thames Street.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried.
Motion to approve a vittling license, the Nitro Bar, 2 Pond Avenue. Do I have a
Second.
Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 8.
Motion to approve an entertainment license expansion, Class B Outdoors Cape Noctem Restaurant LLC, doing business as Fifth Element, to expand the entertainment by adding an outdoor skating rink at 105 Broadway, Monday through Thursday from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m., Friday from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m., and Saturday from 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. This is a hearing, Mr. Chair.
Is the applicant present?
Second, just for discussion.
Sure, yeah, do I have a second? I'm
Second.
sorry.
Thank you,
Thank
Council
you.
Holder. Questions from the council on this?
I have a question. There seems to be some notion that you would be serving alcohol within the skating rink area. Is that something that's been planned by you? Okay. So any alcohol would be served within or food would be served within the restaurant?
Correct. Food and alcohol entirely separate.
Okay. All right. Now, there's also a discussion about music. I mean, you realize you have to follow the noise ordinance and the levels there. Is it right? I thank you. I'm sure we'll be hearing from the neighbors, but I just wanted to bring those points out.
Any additional questions from the council for the applicant before we hear from neighbors? Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there anybody from the neighborhood who wishes to speak on this item? Sir? Good evening.
Evening, Kevin Callahan, 4 Year-Old Street. I submitted a note that council is referring to. I think one of our principal concerns thus far would be the operating hours proposed. Sunday evening after 8 p.m. is pretty objectionable to all of us that abut the restaurant. We're already enjoying the musical performance on Monday evenings within the restaurant, and that comes through pretty loud and clear, and we really don't have much appetite for additional noise disruption. So there's that. We also are concerned on how this will impact parking in the neighborhood, as our street parking on A-Roll, on Kilburn, and on Man Ave already seems stretched to accommodate residents. There's some secondary issues just regarding safety and possible noise, light pollution, because we assume the rink will be lit when operating after dark. And then we also had a question on how long the rink, the owners intend to operate the rink, because it was fairly vague in the application. So those are our major questions and concerns.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Applicant, insert, you can have a seat. The applicant would, we got a handful of questions here. My guess is that you can probably answer some of them. So, do you want to address them or we can go through them one by one, whatever you prefer?
Go through one by one. Let me just start by saying one thing, in regard to the restaurant and the music on Monday nights. I was unaware that it's that loud that you can hear it. So we'll make sure that we, address that and dial it back so that it's not as much of a burden on the family. But if there's anything like that that happens again, just let me know and we'll do our best to prepare it.
Thank you. Okay, so lights. What's the plan for lighting this thing up?
So right now that parking lot is lit with mostly outside lighting. We didn't install any of the lights when we built the lot. We would most likely add some of the sidewalk lighting, those low-level bulbs that illuminate much of Broadway right now. We have it under our garage area. It's, provides safety and enough light for those that park. That would be the plan. Well aware of dark sky compliance in not being, shedding light on neighbor's property. So that would be how we would approach that.
Mhm.
Always, everything that we do is with the best intentions of everyone involved. So not just the restaurant and the parking area, the rink, but also our neighbors and those that patronize our restaurant. So that's an important thing.
How long do you plan to operate the, what is your time frame?
Sure. So our thoughts were the week of Thanksgiving, November, through when it averages, 45 degrees or higher during the day. These rinks aren't dependent upon the natural temperature. They come with, they're called chillers. They're low-level pieces of equipment that are hidden out of sight. They're quiet, and those provide the chill for the ice to stay cold up to 45 degrees.
So November till,
March 1st.
In terms of the parking question, right, obviously you have a parking asset here that you've brought online for the benefit of your establishment. It's now coming offline, which in turn is going to put some burden on the immediate surrounding area. How many people a day are you in, or on average, how many people do you anticipate being on the ice taking advantage of the rink?
Yeah, so the research that I've done, this is the first time type of event for me. Anywhere between 50 and 150 is what I was told to expect on an average. Obviously, there are days, weekends, and Friday nights that may be slightly higher, but you'll have days during the week that are also lower. So the average is kind of
Physically on the ice at the same time?
physically on the ice at the same time. Yeah, that's something we'll have to discuss in terms of professionals that install the rink for us. They have all those guidelines and safety measures, what they recommend. So we always rely on those professionals for that info.
so are you saying that about 150 through the course of the day?
Right. Yeah, that's a real-
Okay.
It could, like I said, it could be higher or
Mhm.
I just don't have an accurate answer.
But that's for a day that extends from 3 p.m. until 10 p.m. So over the course of 7 hours, 150 people. Somebody help me with math at this hour, 20 to 30 people at any given time.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would say that's probably accurate.
Okay.
Yeah, depending on the weather as well.
Additional questions from the council on this item? Any other members of the public who wish to speak on this? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I didn't do full copies for everyone. My name is Priscilla Smith. I live at 10 Kilburn Court. Kilburn Court is a dead-end street adjacent to the parking lot. I do appreciate the fact that the lot is there. They did a great job putting it together. But there's no parking on my street. Sometimes I have to park on Broadway overnight, even in the summertime. There's sometimes no parking on A-Roll or on Man Avenue after 3 o'clock. I have photographs at 3:20 on a Thursday afternoon here of what my little dead-end street looks like. We have 9 houses. 4 of them have driveways. So the majority of us who live on Kilburn Court are impacted by the parking. we're concerned that people are going to come and they're not going to have a place to park. Their children are going to be upset because there isn't going to be any place to wait to get on the skating rink. I'm all for this rink. I think the planning has been poor and the execution of this has been poor. There are other places in the city that this could happen, such as Cardigan's Field, also out at Fort Adams, where there's parking available. So if you do want to take a look at the photographs of Kilburn Court, I do have them here.
Are those from the winter?
These are from last Wednesday.
Motion to receive.
Second.
Second.
Comments or questions? All's in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The items are received.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just I'm going to ask, the city manager or the solicitor, is it possible in some way to put signage up to restrict people from parking in certain areas while this event is taking place?
Most of our parking restrictions are by ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have to be a ordinance that was adopted to say that during this period of time, there would not be any any parking. It's tough to craft that.
Mhm.
Because, suppose the rink isn't there any longer,
Right.
and the signage has to be, you can't have a sign that is overly populated with
Mm-hmm.
restrictions and that. So, yes, you could do it by ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably how you're gonna have to do it.
I mean, there is restricted parking on there now. It says.
It's only for the summer.
Right, but I mean, could we extend that for that particular street?
What type of, yes, I mean, you could, if you wanted to make it restrictions year round, make it more a general restriction, not just targeted to when the rink is there, sure you can.
Like a 24-hour parking, I mean, I'm just throwing it out there to, try to alleviate some of the problems that are even happening just now without the rink.
That has been an idea proposed by our neighborhood to bring that to you because Cornet Street also has 24-hour parking, but our street is unique where it's a dead end. There is no turnaround at the top.
Mhm.
So you have to either back into someone's driveway to turn around or back down the street itself into Broadway.
Right.
The other issue is Broadway is 2-hour parking, and that is year round up until 6 p.m. So it's overnight parking from 6 until 8 a.m. But it's 2-hour parking starting at 8 a.m. year round.
What would, Laura, Swistak, what would they have to do in order to bring forward to the council 24-hour parking? I mean, can we, do they have to get signatures from so they would need to initiate that?
Yeah, I have those application petitions in my
Thank you.
office if you want to stop in and pick one up.
Thank
I can
you.
instruct you from there.
The other issue is safety. And if there is a plan for fire, police, and EMT, if someone is hurt on the ice, how are they getting in and out of the parking lot? There are 2 entrances. There's one for vehicles, but there's also one on Kilburn Court that steps down. Now, in the plan, you can see that the way the skating rink is drawn, it blocks that entrance of stepping down into the parking lot from Kilburn Court. So that's a question that I have for Newport Police Department and for the Newport Fire Department on how do we respond to an emergency if it's a child or an adult?
Police and fire, any concerns about being able to manage emergency situations given the layout of this rink? Okay.
Yeah.
Building on Counselor Segley's question, short of a permanent ordinance change, which to your point, when we're experimenting with something new here, right? Permanent action that might not be necessary in the future. Do we, from a public safety perspective, have the ability to, on a temporary basis, restrict parking to residents only? For a month, very similar to how when, during certain holiday seasons, you have those little fluorescent orange, you know, temporary no parking signs. Is that something we could do on an interim basis to, alleviate any potential conflict point until and short of taking on a full resolution or ordinance change?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you could, based on the overall concern of public safety.
Mr. Chair,
Council Romley.
I think Counselor Sigley was implying at some point that maybe there's a permanent issue on Kilburn Court that needs to be addressed by the city. I can tell you, I've been stuck on that street. So I have the biggest car on the road. The thing is like 100 feet long, and I tried turning around on
I
Kilburn
voted
Court.
for it for the last 3 years and I drive a Mini. That's your solution.
Yeah, it is a tough street, and I would suggest, given the nature of it, that we consider a permanent solution to make it resident only year round.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think we should make it a permanent solution.
I do.
And, but in the meantime, because you're going to have to get signatures, there's a process to go through. It might take a little bit of time, but we can put in some temporary measures to make it easier for you.
Thank you. I appreciate the council's decisions.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Additional members of the community who wish to speak on this?
Mayor, just to circle back to my original statement regarding the operating hours, I'd particularly like to see if we can modify the request to reflect Sunday evenings until 8 unless a Monday holiday. Because as written, I believe it was 10 p.m.
Is that something the applicant would be amenable to? Sunday evenings, except for non-holidays, cut to 8?
Yes, I think it would be acceptable, since we could start maybe a couple hours.
Okay.
Short season meeting.
So start at 10 a.m. and then go till 8 p.m.
Additional comments or questions? I'll just close with this. We really appreciate that you are trying something new to bring in activity to the neighborhood and appreciate your flexibility in working with the neighbors on this. Thank you very much for that. And to the neighbors, thank you for you being amenable to working through this. We realize it's a first time thing. This is a trial. We're going to see how it goes. If there are things that we as a city can be doing to alleviate both the strain of this immediate event and the overall strain your neighborhood feels in the future, please understand the city is leaning into working with you on that, starting initially with some assistance on the parking front should this item pass this evening, but also looking forward in the future to ensuring that this is something that gives you a reasonable quality of life as the people who make our community work.
Mr. Chair, I need to amend this. It's motion to amend the application for Sunday from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any additional comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passed.
Motion to approve as amended, the application as amended.
Second.
Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Items passed. Thank you. Brings us to item 9.
Yes, a motion to approve an entertainment license, new Class A indoor and Class B outdoor, The Quencher Newport LLC, doing business as The Quencher, 95 Long Wharf, indoors Sundays through Saturday from 12 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. and second floor deck Saturday and Sunday from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. This is a hearing and it was continued from January 10th. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Is the applicant here this evening? Good evening. If you could just identify yourself for the record.
Yes, Scott Kermel, 213 Seaside Drive, Jamestown.
Welcome. Questions from the council?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you own the business
Yeah.
along with a partner or on your
Yeah,
own?
partners,
Okay. Thanks. Can you refresh my memory? Council gave approval for the transfer of the liquor license in the old Celtica, correct?
Yes. Yep.
I'm familiar with the Celtica Now, with the new request, presumably this will be the second and the first floor involved with the entertainment license?
Yeah, our apologies, first of all, we thought we were fully approved last time, so for the hearing. So basically, we were looking for radio throughout, live entertainment, like as in bands and karaoke downstairs, inside, windows closed like normal, which has always been the case there. And then upstairs, we're looking for like a singer-songwriter, acoustic sort of minimally amplified music on Saturdays, Sundays, kind of out on the waterfront, like on the deck. So not amplified jam or drums, none of that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, when we approved the liquor transfer, did we also approve, I saw in the application, the 95 total seating? Is that your first floor capacity or your second and first floor capacity?
Second and first.
Mr. Chairman, did we approve the additional seating for the second floor in the approval 2 months ago for the transfer of the liquor license and Part B of that application?
Clerk is indicating yes.
Thanks very much.
Additional comments or questions?
Yes, I just have a question for Laura. Laura, does this have to come before us again, or is this the last time? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Other comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Where are we? Appointments.
Boards and commissions.
Any updates from the council from boards and commissions? Hearing none, that moves us to appointments. I would like to ask the council to consider the appointment of Patricia Antonelli to the planning board for a 3-year term expiring 10/31/2024.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's carried.
Yes, this is a motion to accept a memorandum from City Solicitor Christopher Bean approving the easement benefiting 50 Washington Square property for the installation of a subterranean vault in the sidewalk on the south side of Farewell Street sidewalk abutting 50 Washington Square property. And I believe there is there's actually a resolve that we have to take action on, correct?
Resolution, yes.
Okay, so, all right, so the resolve is that the city of Newport agrees to enter into the attached easement agreement with 50 Washington Square, Newport LP for installation of a subterranean electrical transformer vault in the above described public right-of-way. And the mayor is authorized to execute the same on behalf of the city after the satisfactory review and approval by the city solicitor. Make a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All right, Chris, this is not your accessory dwelling unit under the streets of Newport. No.
I want to take a look at the vault though.
Yeah.
That's in that vault.
Let me know if you find any Ninja Turtles down there.
You could have Geraldo Rivera come and look at the vault.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried.
This next is a communication from the town of Jamestown regarding Gould Island.
Thank you, Mary, very much for joining us this evening to, and for all the work that you're putting into potential preservation of Gould Island for public use.
Thank you for having me. So my name is Stephen Waugh. I am the Jamestown Harbor Master. Can you hear me okay? I'm also the Jamestown Harbor Director. Just been in that position now for about a year. So as you alluded to, Jamestown has for several years now, since 2017 actually, been working with the Army Corps of Engineers, Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management, Coastal Resource Management Council, the town council, and a number of other entities, including Senator Reed and Senator Whitehouse's office and others. We have an interest in why I'm here today, so I just have a few PowerPoint slides. I'm going to go very quickly and respect your time, but please, if it's too quickly, just slow me down. So what I'm here to ask just a couple of things. Most importantly, I'm not asking for any funds or any support personnel, no money. So your advocacy, though, we would like to get your support for an initiative we've been working on, and now are proposing to Rhode Island DEM. We also want you to know where we stand, what we've been doing recently and what's coming up. And then it'd be great if I had a point of contact here on your team, or maybe the harbor master, or maybe someone that I can update periodically as this effort goes forward. So again, it's really your support, and 4 other towns have given us their support via a one-page letter, and I'll cover that in just a second. That you have awareness, and again, perhaps a point of contact I can work with, just to keep informed, ask questions. So the next slide is just showing a little bit of Gould Island history. So north of the bridge, just west of the Navy base, east of the north end of Jamestown, if you're not too familiar, used to be a Navy torpedo facility back in the day. Early in 1917, 1916, it opened up. It was phased in and then grew dramatically from then. At one point, I think at its height, about 600 sailors and civilian engineers out there working on torpedo programs. You know, the southern end was an air base for seaplanes that were using, testing those torpedoes in an open ocean environment offshore. So Rydam, though, over a period of about 15 years, they gave 2/3 of that island back to the state, and it remained vacant. We didn't, as a state, we really didn't do anything with that acreage. It came in 1975 and again in 1986. The Navy still operates the northern end of it, about 14 acres. Not much activity is really happening out there, but they do keep it. I don't think they have a long-term strategy to turn it back over to the state, and they are dismantling some of the buildings now out there. Rydam started working on this. They have done some mediation. The center part of the island really has the majority of exposure to toxic substances, some hazardous buildings, and they've done some mediation. In May of this year, we're hoping they'll give us the status of risk analysis and their plans to mediate those risks. That's coming soon. So again, the next slide I have for you is a bit of a timeline. So again, 2017, the Army Corps comes out using the formerly used defense site program and funding to evaluate the condition of the center and southern sections. 2018, we formed the Army did, and Jamestown joined the Restoration Advisory Board for the island, and you all have a Restoration Advisory Board for that area just south of Middletown along the shore there, where the Navy had some installations, and that's underway too now. So 2019, we did conduct a site visit that was on the cover page here, where we had all those participants I just mentioned, CRMC, DEM. You all had a representative, the federal delegation. We all went out to that island. We got to walk around it after they had done some mediation. And then in 2022, they actually started to do some removal of buildings. They started to remove some soil areas, tons along the shoreline. They took down an old pier structure. So they've done some work out there. And now, again, as I mentioned, in May, we're going to hear where they stand for the remaining work that needs to be done. So if we could, I guess I'll just stick with this. So the next slide is telling you what we have proposed to DEM, Coastal Resources, and it's really to develop the southern portion of that island for public access. And we kind of hope to use, so we recommended to DEM. DEM would retain control of the island. And we would like to use if you've ever been to the southern end of Prudence Island, anybody? Mm-hmm. It's a park. Mm-hmm. And it does have a NOAA facility. It has a DEM research facility. Mm-hmm. They run summer youth camps there. That's kind of where we're thinking in a phased approach, that you would start out with just hiking and biking and picnicking and move onward from there, depending on how well that goes. So that's kind of the vision of what we feel we would like to see happen with the southern end of Gould Island. So the middle section of the island, about 22 acres, would remain as a bird sanctuary and be fenced off from access on the southern section and still not used by the Navy on the northern section. So a 3-section approach. I have a chart here with a map in just a second. And we are proposing that part of your support would agree with what we think should happen, and is Gould would become part of the Bay Islands Park System. So pausing there for just a second, there really is no such thing. When you go onto the DEM website, they have a tab for the Rhode Island Narragansett Bay Park Systems, but there's nothing there. So they've never really developed that. We are asking them to develop that. We are asking them to put funding in their 2025 budget to do that. But right now, there isn't one. So as you know, there are about 30 islands in the Narragansett Bay, many of them left behind by former military tenants, operators. And we're asking that they develop a long-term strategy to open those islands over the years to the public as best can be accomplished. They all need to be evaluated. And another model to think about, if you haven't been up to Boston Harbor, 27 islands in Boston Harbor. Again, many used formerly as defense sites, and they have a system. It's called the Boston Harbor Park System. So we're kind of thinking along those lines. So the benefits of doing this are pretty obvious, right? So we have a beautiful area here. The benefits of opening that up for public access and public use, it's for all the communities around us, right? So you, Newport, you're a key stakeholder in all the interests that you have here. So is Jamestown, North Kingstown, Narragansett. So we all have an interest around the bay that these areas remain open to the public. They become recreational areas, not developed areas for commercial use, and so on. The next chart is a good pictorial of what I'm trying to explain here. If you could get that, there it is. Well, it's kind of vertical, but in any case. So north to south, that's what you're looking at there. Maybe go back one if you could. Okay, I'll just take a second then, thank you. So it's just a picture of the island, and it shows it's separated into the three pieces that I'm trying to explain. The northern section owned by the Navy, the the center 22 acres would remain as a bird sanctuary, and then the southern section, 17 acres, would be public access, again, in a phased approach, very similar to what Prudence Island has available to us now. Ferry system could possibly bring you there. Again, biking trails, hiking trails, beach picnics is what we envision. Let me take a breath there and see if does anyone have any questions about where we're going here? Anything so far?
Well, yeah, I'm just curious, what, the naval station that's there, that they own that area, I mean, what is there now?
Really nothing. They are removing the last remaining structure, which was at the northernmost tip along a pier. And that was where the torpedoes were first ejected from an assembly system and then later dropped into the water via crane system. They did some recent years, maybe in the last 10, they did conduct from that building and from some trailers they had. They did do some unmanned vehicle testing out there, and there still remains a range. If you look at a nautical chart, you can see there's a range that's cordoned off for Navy use. But my understanding of that, I'm a former naval officer, is it's really it's hardly used at all now, if at all. But they still, plan to hold on to it for some time now. I'm not sure what the 20-year, 30-year strategy is.
Other questions from the council? A lot of demolition and stuff happening here, right? Do you have any use for fill or soil at this site?
I was thinking the exact.
I'm kind of serious, but.
So I don't know if you've been across the bridge in a while, but we have this massive dirt pile that's been accumulated, and I don't know what they're doing with that. So I think we have enough dirt for now. But you know what? If you've watched the news, we do have an issue with the roadways along the shoreline flooding constantly. So I can ask if maybe we want to take that dirt and pile it up.
Yeah, let us know.
Make a bridge of some sort, some kind
You
of barrier.
could sell it to you, yeah.
Additional questions from the council? Okay. Anything to close?
Just to wrap up the final two slides, it's really just to show you that RIDEM is aware of this effort. They have responded to us in email. Several meetings have been conducted with Jamestown leadership, the federal delegation, people are in general support of doing this in a phased approach. Again, public access, we're not advocating for any commercial down the road, perhaps a ferry system that would bring you there. But what we're asking of you, again, is your endorsement in a similar way to North Kingstown, Middletown, Portsmouth, Narragansett, and we're going, I'm also meeting with East Greenwich and some of the Charlestown. So we're asking you to agree with us that this is a good thing for the community, for the Bay, for the state, and that's it. And don't need any funding. We have our own.
Should I make a motion? A motion to endorse the plan for Gould Island.
Second.
Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's carried.
Thank you
Thank you very much for all your work.
Thank you.
I have no updates to the council priorities dashboard from last meeting. Thanks to item 14.
Okay. Motion to approve a memorandum from the Director of Planning and Development regarding updates on resolutions 2023-10, 2023-11, and 2023-12, submittal of work plan and budget resolution number 2023-09. Do I have a second?
Second.
Couple questions for our planner on this. Good evening, Trish.
Good evening,
Good
everybody.
evening.
Thank you for sticking around to talk with us about this. Any initial questions from the council before we dive in? But my initial question is timelines, right? So on the Cogshell School project, you note that the MOU indicated timeline. I know a lot of people are curious about what the next step is in that process, what the likely timing of that is. Can you just give us at a really high level, when should we expect to see this percolate back up again?
So right now, they're working with our city solicitor's office on drafting a purchase and sale agreement. They don't want to move forward and invest any money until they have some level of assurance that they'll be able to purchase the property. Once that happens, we'll begin the formal review by the city. It'll go through the technical review committee, and I would expect that they'll be utilizing the adaptive reuse method to redevelop the building. So that'll be something that'll be able to be utilized because of the new changes that we just made to our zoning ordinance. And in addition to that, there will be a review for the potential development of the other 3 lots that are on Evart Street. That'll need to go to zoning and through a review process.
So just that purchase and sale will come before the council for approval ultimately. Will it include, the general provisions around the project in terms of, target rents, number of units, those high level factors at that point in time? And secondarily, about when? I might have missed that in your answer. Should we expect that to come back?
So right now, we're in the process of negotiating those things, the sort of nuances of the PNS. It will come before the council for approval. And we don't have the final version available yet, but we will have varying conditions in there.
But in terms of timing, is this like this quarter? Is it like, second quarter? Is it, when do we think we might see that?
For the agreement, we could probably have a draft agreed to by both parties within 4 to 8 weeks. Just going back, depending on the nature of the issues and where we're at with them. So, I mean, it's entirely possible we're 4 to 8 weeks.
Thank you. Second question on timing. First of all, great work on the technical assistance grant that the team has gotten from Rhode Island Housing to look at potential areas where Newport has actual capacity to develop housing, where it might make sense and fit. What's the timing on more information from that process becoming public and there being a better idea as to what that what that study will show?
I'm really happy that you asked that. We've been working diligently with the consultants, and they have been really, they're familiar with the city of Newport, really great to work with on this project. We are proposing to have our first introduction to the public in February. We're looking to target around the middle of the month, and we have some ideas of places that we could be. We'll be introducing some of the early work product and the things that we're discussing and looking at, and the kinds of ideas that are part of the plan. So the target date, we haven't firmed this up yet, but would be the 15th of February. We're looking to start the public outreach then.
Any additional questions from the council? Thank you and the department for focusing on housing. It's much appreciated.
Thank you.
Motion.
Uh,
I made a motion to accept.
It's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks.
Motion to accept a memorandum from the city manager regarding soil stockpile and landfill at Rogers High School. Recommendations to be discussed and a possible vote to on action to be taken. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion's carried.
Okay, action item, oh, you know what? Let me do it this way. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Councilor Carlin?
may I, before the vice chair moves on, I don't want anybody who's watching on the video stream or anyone who's here in person for that matter to think that we have not taken or will not take any action on what's happening at the Rogers High School site regarding the landfill, the stockpile, the dirt pile, whatever you want to call it. That was simply a motion that we approved to accept a memo from our city manager regarding an update that she had received. The next item
Yes,
I would suggest is the real item.
motion to approve an action item number 6226 -24 regarding the soil stockpile at the Rogers testing report.
Second.
Okay, any comments or questions on this one?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Carlin?
This has been a massive headache for the neighbors, especially immediate abutters of the Rogers High School project, particularly the dirt pile, which has been accumulating now for months and months and months. I'm not going to talk for too long. I just want my colleagues and my neighbors, friends, constituents, and everybody else who's listening to know that this is unacceptable. Unacceptable what's happening here. No more of the suggestions, from my point of view, no more of the suggestions that what's happening is simply incompetence or a lack of full transparency. I do not think we have been told the truth. I think it is clear to, I know it is clear to me that the suggestion that we just discovered as a school building committee that we can't use this stockpile, this dirt pile, which has been accumulated to refill, to cap the project, as we have been told for months and months and months. It's a bunch of Oscar Mayer baloney. And if I was offsite, that's not the words, those aren't the words I would use. I came to this meeting so frustrated with this school building committee, of which I am a member, appointed by the mayor. Got on in February of this year.
By the council.
Appointed by the council. Got on in February of last year. I have been so frustrated with this school building committee and the school committee and their consistent nonsense, looking us straight in the eye as a council and giving us what I just described. I came here tonight ready to ask my council colleagues to take back, essentially, $4 million of what the council approved a month and a half ago for the school building committee to finish, or at least to make it occupancy ready, the project at Rogers High School. I was told, perhaps others were told, that this stockpile of soil will be used to refill and cap As soon as we dig up what we need to dig up, and as soon as we get ready to take step 3, 4, and 5 on the school building project, we will use that stockpile to load up that capping need. That's not the case, as our city manager found out about a week and a half ago. $4 million, $4 million, they told us, the school building committee at the Pell School 7 months ago. They told us $4 million is the cost of removing the then dirt pile from where it was at Rogers. They promised us, we'll use this dirt pile to cap and to soil and to do whatever else they need. And you all don't have to worry about it. It will be gone. And there will be no need to spend the money as existed 7 months ago, the $4 million, to get rid of this toxic dirt pile. Fast forward to now. We gave the school building committee $6 million based on what I thought would be truths. That we will get rid of that pile by capping it on the current project. We can't cap it. Who's going to pay for that removal of the soil? After we gave you $6 million based on promises, who is going to pay for the removal of that soil? 4 million minimum, maybe 5 million. I'll stop here before I get in any trouble. Absolute nonsense. I implore my colleagues, we have got to do something, if not tonight, likely not tonight, in some time in the very near future. This has got to end. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, could I?
Yes,
just
Vice
make
Chair.
Some points here. I'm on the building committee as well, and I went to the meeting on Monday night. And I was very upset about this discussion and about the results of not being able to use some of this soil as fill. I felt, and I expressed myself that I believe that we sometimes are being led down a road, not by the building committee members or the chairs or the superintendent, but by the consultants, like being led down a road that puts us at a very critical junction, and we suddenly have to make a decision. I feel as though instead of telling us exactly what they know from the beginning. Now, that's just my impression, but that's how I felt, and that's what I expressed and in my frustration. Now, what was discussed, though, with this soil stockpile is that it can be used, but not under any place where there is a structure, like a parking lot or a building, or, so it can be spread around on the property itself, dug down 42 inches and then capped with cleaner soil. So that is where we are right now. Now, the $4 million is an interesting issue because no matter how you slice this pie, the money is always going to come from the city. That's how I see it. DEM says that this track is the city's responsibility, whether we can even take $4 million, well, you know what? That they're going to need money. So where are they going to get it from? So to me, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's our responsibility. We have to deal with it. We need some sort of plan. If we do not want to add to the stockpile, we need Plan B to say, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to pay to cart it off? Because the money is not there for building the school, for building the school and carting that dirt off the property. So the city's going to have to pay for that dirt to be removed. We need a Plan B. And that's why I believe that we need to have a very good consultant who can help us understand how we can use that soil and what would be the end result of this really very difficult. this site is very difficult. We've got ledge, we've got lead paint, we've got, there was a dump, there was like, it was a Navy dump. I mean, we're not talking about a pristine piece of property here where you say, oh, let's go build a school in a field where there are no issues. This is an extremely difficult piece of property. And where they wanted to put the school originally, they can't, because that's where the track where the most dangerous soils are. And the soils that are on that track now in that big pile are less contaminated than those soils are less contaminated than what's actually under the track. So we need to come up with, we cannot stop the building of Rogers High School because we want to, deal with the soil. We have to find, either we put it someplace on the property, or we cart it off, or we add it to the pile, but there has to be a solution to this. We can just not create a problem and not have a solution. And, I don't want to turn this into a political football, because that's not good for the kids. It's not good for anybody. And I just want to say that no matter what, I believe this is a city issue.
I'm sorry, are we on action item number 16?
Yes,
Is the recommendation to accept the report?
yes.
So
That's
what,
all.
I don't understand why we're having this conversation. What is happening? We're just accepting the report, right? There is no action item about how we're going to remediate or use
No.
the soil.
No, you would not be in any kind of vote. Any kind of action you take on this docket item you're
Yeah.
on right now
Yeah.
would have to be limited to the testing report, accepting it, and so forth. The previous docket item was probably the item you had more flexibility in terms of taking action on.
Oh,
Mr. Chairman, may I?
I thought, so
I'm still voting for Councilman
just
Colorado.
another clarification. I thought that number 15 was we voted to just accept the memo,
Right.
right?
Doc, so
Because if that's not the case, and
the docket item 15 is the memorandum from the city manager about the soil stockpile
Yeah.
and landfill. And it says recommendations to be discussed and a possible vote on action to be taken. So that.
so what I heard from this council is that, or correct me if I'm wrong, for my colleagues, that we just voted to accept the memo.
Just, yes. And actually, just to accept both is what the motions have been. Now,
Sorry.
Mr. Carlin made his points, and I felt as though I had to
Okay.
add to them. Not
Yeah,
refute him necessarily, but just to add to them. And because I think it's important for the public to understand, where we are at with this stockpile.
Mr. Chairman, might I?
Yes, Counselor.
I have to disagree with both of my colleagues, and I do so knowing that you study, you understand, but this has perhaps been the one issue that I have studied and tried to understand the most. Communications from the city manager on the agenda this evening. There are 4 communications. The prior communication, number 15, as my colleague said, Councilor McCullough, it's simply a memorandum. It's simply an update from the city manager. There was no action item tied to that update. Action item,
But
or
it's
number 16.
Excuse me, I shouldn't have called it action item, but the action of, they wanted a possible vote on action to be taken.
I don't see that on our agenda. I see it simply, I do not see item 15 listed as a request for an action item to be taken. I do, however, see item 16 listed as a request for an action item to be taken. If I am incorrect, I'd love to be corrected.
I mean, I'm reading what I'm reading. I don't.
Solicitor, please.
So, Mr. Collin, the item 15 communication from the city manager did provide an update, provided additional information, and we included on the docket, based on the submission of that memo, recommendations to be discussed and possible vote on action to be taken. So there could have been action taken in the confines of that.
But the
I-
only
I just-
action that we took was just to accept the memo at this
Correct.
piece.
Yeah, we accepted, and my colleagues is showing me here, and I'm also looking at it. We accepted the memo. There was no specific request that the memorandum, and I wish the public could see it, but we can't. The public cannot. Item 15 on the docket, under the title of communications from the city manager. Item 15 is clearly labeled as a memorandum to city council from the city manager. And that it outlines by way of 3 paragraphs, what is before us on the previous item. Item 16 is not labeled as such. It's request for city council action. Item 16 to me is asking for us to take action. Item 15, although a great memo, is ambiguous. It doesn't have a specific, it talks about what we may do. Item 16 is very specific. It's a request for city council action.
Solicitor Bean, is there something you want to weigh in on this, or?
Yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but based on the document item as it's described in the agenda, it allows council to discuss recommendations based on what the manager reported out into, which could also follow the vote. Now, that's not to say it's hot on, it would still have to be confined in there, so that's the, could have discussed this further, and you could have taken certain action.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilor Garland.
having been in the affirmative on item number 15 under communications for the city manager, I am asking that we revisit that item, and I would seek a second.
Second.
Comments or questions on revisiting? Are we able to technically do that? To go back and revisit?
Yes. Anyone who voted in the affirmative can go back.
I think we all did.
I think it has to be at the same meeting or the next time the council meets.
So motion to revisit item 15 has been seconded. Any additional comments or questions from the council? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr. Chairman?
So just a quick recap of what's,
And to vote on that.
sure. Well, actually, I don't think we're under any requirement to, right?
What's that?
Did the motion pass on the affirmative, or do we require an individual vote on that?
I think that was to Vice Chair's Segley's point is
She wants a hand vote.
couldn't see
Is
it.
it re-
She wants
is
a
it-
hand
I don't know who supported
Right,
that.
right.
You can ask to have a show of hands.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so here's a quick recap of what's going on here for those that are trying to follow the past 10 minutes of parliamentary procedure debate we've been having. The substance of it is that we have 2 items on the agenda that relate to the dirt pile at Rogers High School related to the construction project. One item on the agenda is regarding test results that were requested by the city council as a second round of testing on the potential presence of contaminants in the soil. The second item in the agenda is actually regarding additional developments that have occurred with regards to our knowledge about the soil at that site, regarding their geotechnical qualities and whether or not that soil could in fact be used as part of either fill or for other site purposes at Rogers, and the potential addition of up to as much as 2/3 of additional soil to the existing stockpile that exists at Rogers High School. And so the dance that we have been doing is whether or not we could actually discuss and or undertake any level of action given the order in which these items were listed in the agenda and how they've been considered. We are now back to square zero in that discussion to allow the council to consider potential action and directive in accordance with proper procedure.
Mr. Chairman,
Council Carlin.
appreciate my colleagues and our city solicitors understanding, advice, etc., regarding what we just went through. I usually don't miss these things, and I still contend I didn't miss it. But I certainly would not have left item 15 without discussion. Luckily, parliamentary procedure allowed me to bring this up again. I appreciate my 5 colleagues who supported me. I am on 15. We are on 15, as you know. And I would like to ask first the city manager a question, and then when the council, if the council has questions and are finished asking the questions, I'd like to ask that the public be allowed to speak on this, Mr. Chairman. First, for the city manager. Manager Citron, the memorandum to the council says that you were told there could be as much as 2/3 additional soil added to the demolition of the gym and the remaining items to be done on the project. Have you received, Madam Manager, any response to that statement you've made to the council from school building committee members or others, knowing that you likely would have responded, stop that, don't do that?
It was brought up at the school building committee meeting on Monday night, and it was confirmed that the school superintendent at least had understood that there could be as much as 2/3 additional more soils that would be put in onto the stockpile as a result of primarily the demolition of the gym.
Appreciate that, Manager Citron. Question for the solicitor, the manager, or anyone who can answer it. When we, as a council, voted 6-1 7 months ago to require the removal of the stockpile, the council for the Newport School Committee, acting as council for the school building committee, but de facto as well, discussed, as I understand it, with our city solicitor, council's opinion, legal counsel's opinion, that this city council could not, by way of resolution, order the removal of that stockpile because, paraphrase, so long as that property, although owned by the city, so long as that property is being used for educational purposes, we have no authority over demanding the removal of the pile. What, if anything, has changed between that legal counsel's opinion and now regarding us, the council, by resolution, telling the school building committee and the school committee, no more dumping? What has changed? Have we suddenly as a council been given the authority to tell them what to do, yet we were not able to do so 7 months ago?
To tell you the truth, I don't think in terms of those legal parameters that a lot has changed. But the one thing you didn't add in there is, yes, when it comes to the site there, the school site, the building of the school committee, the schools have the authority to make decisions. However, what was discussed, there are also other laws involved here, including those concerning hazardous materials and such, where the city is primarily responsible, is always going to be held as the owner of the property, responsible for that. What was discussed back then is they were still operating under the DEM permit. That DEM, they had no indication they had violated the DEM permit, allowing them to do the things they had done up to that point. So again, with that said, that's why we couldn't stop them by ordinance or resolution. Now, there have been changes in the underlying factual scenario, more soil and all of that. But again, are they operating under, the DEM permit for that? There's still those issues there for us we have to consider. Now, in terms of asking them to stop doing it, it's depending on what we're relying on to tell them to do that. And I really don't, at this stage, if this is becoming a adversarial litigation type of thing, I don't think I should be providing all of our legal advice to the public on what we're doing. So I want to be careful of how far I go further in abiding.
I appreciate that very much. That's why we have a great city solicitor. But there are 2 or more suggestions, requests from the city manager regarding this underlying item number 15. First, I am recommending that we inform the school that they can no longer add any newly excavated soil to the stockpile or anywhere on the site. Mr. Chairman, I reserve the right after discussion since we've been told that this is an item we can act on, to make such a motion. Let the legal authorities sort it out. If they don't like it, let them sue us. Second, the city manager says, I also recommend that we hire legal and environmental consultants to get a full history of the landfill and work with the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management, RIDEM, to determine what, if anything, needs to be done about the landfill under the track. Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask the city manager a question based on that last statement.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Manager Citron. Do you have any legal and environmental consultants in mind who you would like to hire?
No, I mean, we have an environmental engineering firm that we have worked with pretty regularly, and I would consider this to be, we'd still have to abide by purchasing regulations in terms of making those determinations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Manager Citron. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I reserve the right to, by way of amendment of this action item or of this item, I reserve the right to ask the council to give the city manager authority to bring before us her suggestion on said consultants. I yield.
So, Mr. Chair, Council Carlin, are you suggesting that these would be 2 separate votes?
I don't care how we do it, frankly. It's the decision of the council that whatever you'd like to do. I
Well,
just want to
I-
make sure
I
that
mean,
those 2 items,
I think they should be 2 separate votes.
that's fine. Yeah, the reason I asked for this to be reconsidered is because apparently this was the appropriate item under which or by which to take these votes. So 2 votes, 1 vote, 600 votes. I don't care. As long as we get it done.
Is that a
Additional
motion?
comments from the council? Sorry, Councilor
Do
Holder.
I
Miss-
have to make a motion to?
Right? Do we have to make a motion?
Can we
to split the
just
vote?
discuss this a touch more before we put a motion on the
Mhm.
table?
Mhm.
Expand a little bit more, but Councilor Holder, I saw you.
I was asking if he was making a motion to
Yeah.
amend it.
All right. Comments first.
Yes, this dirt pile is so troubling, and I don't want to see any more dirt being put on there. I really don't. But I think it is wholly irresponsible to say, well, we're just not going to dump any dirt. And what are we going to do with the dirt? Okay. I mean, we have to have a plan B. We have to have a solution to this. We can't just say, you can't dump anymore. It's not the, it's not feasible because we have to continue building the school. Otherwise, we're going to lose 52 or so % reimbursement if the school is not open by December of 2025. We can't stop the building of this school without it really, doing a lot of damage to our taxpayers in our city. I mean, we're already, having so many infrastructure issues. I mean, I don't know, is Plan B for the rest of for the city to pay for the rest of the soil to be carted off, or is the plan to put it in another part of the property? We need a solution to this. We don't need just a question. We need a solution because we can't stop the kids are in a school that is one of the worst in Rhode Island. We can't continue to have them in that school. And the safety issues that are happening there, it's not, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And I will not support. I need another. I need a plan B before I can actually say don't dump anything.
I think we're dealing with 3 issues here, and I agree with you on the plan B here, right? You've got the dirt, the dump, and accountability. Regarding the dump, this is an issue that the city now needs to deal with. And the city needs to figure out 2 things. First, when did this become our problem?
It's always been our problem.
Because as records show for us so far, we found EPA notified us in 1990, appropriately dealt with. And since that point, city management has not received any directive from DEM directly that we have on record that we have to remediate this dump. Now, that does not change the fact that we likely will have to address that issue regardless. And what is readily apparent is that there are not resources for any party other than the city to figure out how we are going to remediate that dump. And so part of the consideration here is we know we're going to have to deal with it. Let's get after it and start working on it. The second half of this problem is this dirt pile, which has gone from being a stockpile, which is where you put materials you intend to use later on site, into dumping, into a place that you are throwing a problem with no plan as to how to deal with it. We need to figure out a way, working together with the school building committee, to keep this project moving forward, right? But that is a dual track needs to work. First, figuring out what to do with the dirt, the school building committee needs to provide us with a plan as to what they intend to do with that dirt before they continue adding to it. And we know that the next major event they have for a substantial addition to that dirt is when the Rogers Gym comes down. So we've got from now until about April to come up with a plan, but there needs to be some serious pressure to actually come up with a plan. And we simultaneously, as a city, need to be pursuing what the plan is for the ultimate dump, because the two are interrelated. But that is probably where the joint cooperation is going to be delineated, because we have a lot of issues to deal with, and we need to be focused on those areas where we actually do have requisite authority and responsibility. The second item is equally important, or the third item, which is accountability. There is a rolling lack of accountability where nobody actually seems to be standing up saying, we own this problem, this is where it's coming from, except for the taxpayers. And so we need to take a careful look at what the contractual obligations and liability provisions are for every single party that is involved with this contract. Because as I look at it, one of 2 things is going to come up. Either those contracts are going to turn up and say, guess what? This party accepts liability for oversights in terms of guidance that weren't provided, that should have been provided, and they will be the party responsible for paying for this oversight. Or they're going to come back and say, well, guess what? That contractor, the project manager, is indemnified against liability for that particular provision. In which case, I would ask the question that if they had the foresight to indemnify themselves against the risk for not doing things like geotechnical testing, But why did they have the foresight to tell us that we should be getting that testing done in the first place? We need to turn up the heat on that issue. And I think when we are considering hiring legal counsel, their mandate should extend beyond just where and when our liability arose at the dump and potential solutions on how to move forward, but actually who needs to be held accountable for the oversights. Because we cannot continue having a situation where the only reason and logic behind why these project costs continue mounting is that they are unforeseen and unforeseen and unforeseen. We hired somebody to help us foresee the problems, and they need to answer for that. And so the reason I asked for some additional time is I think, Councilor Carlin, the mandate here we want to put forward is probably threefold. First, asking that the school building committee come up with a plan for what they intend to do with both the stockpile of dirt and additional dirt that may be used before they continue adding to it. Second, that the city immediately contract with an environmental specialist and an attorney to help us understand what the best pathway forward is for remediating that dump, to include potentially coordinating with the U.S. military to any extent that they may have military dumping that occurred there that might be an avenue for resourcing. And third, for an attorney who specializes in looking at contracts regarding construction to take a careful look at every contractual engagement that's been taken on by the school building committee for this project to consider who might actually have liability for these oversights that have been occurring to date. I would like to put that motion on the floor.
I'd second that.
I just
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
having a.
Point of order, please. There was a motion made, seconded. Are we in discussion now?
We are in discussion. I'm going to give Councilor McCalla the initial word.
Thank you.
I thought there was already a motion to decide whether or not we were going to split the votes already. I just want to clarify, is that,
Mr. Chairman, may I?
or did we? And then I do want to weigh in as well.
Yes,
so
what do you mean by
I'm
I
done.
split the vote? So just for my own clarity.
Okay.
There wasn't a I don't
There
believe
was.
there was a previous motion that was seconded.
That's correct.
Okay.
I think this was the
Just-
first one that was made and seconded.
Okay. And I just, thank you very much. And I just want to clarify, because like the original memo that I'm reading right here asks for two things. One, recommending to stop excavation, and then two, to hire legal and environmental consultants. And Mayor, if I'm hearing you right, you're asking also for an additional amendment to or to add on to this and say, come up with, so the Newport building committee needs to come up with a plan, is one. The city needs an immediate plan for, can
Well,
you just
yeah,
repeat them?
Yep. So first is that we ask the school building committee to take on responsibility for delivering a plan for both the use of the existing stockpile
Mhm.
and for any additional dirt before they continue adding to it.
Okay.
With nominal exceptions to allow them to proceed with construction in the interim. Second, that the city, with regards to the recommended environmental consultant and legal counsel, engage with that party to begin working concurrent to the school building committee's planning process to come up with a plan for what our plans are for remediation on that dump. And then the third is that we also charge those attorneys with undertaking a review of the contractual obligations and liability policies of all contractors involved with this project, to determine who it is that should be held accountable for these oversights to date.
Okay.
And which department is going to undertake that, or is that also in addition to the consultant firm?
That final piece will be undertaken by the city. My assumption is under the direction of the city manager and solicitor's office, similar to the undertaking of the planning process for the dump.
So just to clarify, the school building committee would, they would have to come up with a plan to, for the dumping of the new soil on the site. Okay, that's fine. But not stopping, but in some of this could prevent the continuation of the project? I mean, how are you
No,
framing that?
what I'm writing on that's a very good question. legally, whether or not we have the ability to force the school building committee to stop stockpiling soil is a question that we could probably end up litigating well beyond the point at which the stockpiling would be done. I think what we're trying to do here is set a collaborative tone where we say, look, we understand this is a big problem we've all got to deal with. We are asking you to deal with this issue before you continue stockpiling soil here. Understanding that from a construction timeline perspective, looking at what's been presented in conversations with the school building committee chair, there's no major additional dumping planned at this site until April when the Rogers Gym comes down. That's the triggering event that's going to potentially increase that by 2/3.
There's, I think there is going to be some digging, having to do with utilities but not anything of any great, I just, yeah, it's not going to be until April. And I think by then, we could come up with a plan for that. And perhaps DEM could say that we could maybe dump it on another part of the site. I don't know, but just to, just to bring forward, let's just stop them from dumping. I mean, to me is like, it's just causing a problem and not creating a solution.
Exactly.
Chairman.
Hence the latitude.
Mr. Chairman.
Right. Then I'll come right to you in a second. The latitude to, again, ask them that by April they have that plan. Understand that in the meantime, there will be nominal additional additions to that stockpile just to not halt the progress on the project. So I agree with you 100%. We got to get this school built, but we do have to at some point figure a way to start enforcing some
But
accountability.
let me also just be entirely clear from the last meeting we had that some of that soil can be dug down 42 inches and used in non-structural parts of the property, and then covered with another 2 feet of clean soil. So that would be completely, taken care of. So it's not as if we can't use some of that soil. We can. Okay. So can we use it to support the buildings? No, but we can use it for another.
Councilor Napolitano and then down to Councilor Carlin after.
Yes, I just want to say, this is what keeps council members up at night. To me, the accountability is really where it's at. You got a project manager. We've been told for over a year that this soil would be used for pilings when they built the new structure at Rogers. We find out now, almost a year later, it's too silty. It can't, or it holds the moisture, it doesn't hold the moisture. I don't know. But we pay these people good money to give us the proper advice. And now, all I see, we went for the premium bond. And thank God we did. And I was happy that we got that premium bond and we were able to put additional money toward Rogers. But every time we turn our heads, it's more money, but more money to who? To the taxpayers that right now have been struggling through this economy. Now that it's getting a little better, we're hoping we're going to have an ease. We're not going to have an ease. It just feels like there's no end to this. I think that at some point, somebody needs to give us a definitive answer why this wasn't known 6 months ago or a year ago when they started piling the soil up, that it could not be used. How did, they got Gilbane's, a international company that works around the world. We've got a project manager. I don't get it. I don't get it. I think we paid a lot of money to a lot of people, and we don't have anything or very little to show for it. And if that doesn't scare the taxpayers in Newport, I don't know what else would. It's just unfathomable to me to think that we could be this far into it and nobody seems to know what's going on. I was disappointed. I will admit that we didn't regionalize, but that's over the bridge. you know, I was excited about seeing a new school, having a new school built, having the kids get the kind of education they deserve. Now all bets are off. I'm just really,
Will be built. I mean, we've got to.
hey, by whom? The taxpayers. The
Council-
taxpayers.
Council
Well,
Carlin?
We're not gonna, we're
Thank
not
you,
gonna
Mr. Chairman.
put
Thank you.
52% reimbursement at risk.
And but that, you know, every time there's a change, we're told, oh, if we don't get it done by this date, we're not going to get this reimbursement. If we don't do this, we're not going to get this. I mean, it feels like we're moving backwards. It really feels like we're moving backwards when we should be moving the city of Newport and the kids forward. And I agree, you know, it's been a real dilemma. I don't know what the issue is. I just know we don't get the correct responses. We don't get the answers that we have asked the questions for. And to come up 6 months later and say they can't use this soil and, oh, what are we going to do? Oh, by the way, you got to do the track. And it's the city of Newport's responsibility. I've heard that from the very beginning, from the school committee. I don't really know. I don't know.
Council Carlin?
Thank you, Councilor Napolitano. Excellent. Well said. I appreciate your support on this since the beginning. I no longer have confidence in the school building committee. I don't think they know their back end from their elbow at this point, as has been evidenced by many months of incompetence. But we do have a motion on the floor and there is a second. So question for the sponsor, please. Yourself, Mr. Chair.
Hello.
My question is, your motion, does that encompass the council approving the second recommendation on the original ask, which comes from the city manager, which is that we hire legal and environmental consultants to get a full history of the landfill and work with RD, RIDEM to determine what, if anything, needs to be done about the landfill under the track. Does your motion encompass that?
It does. Thank you. for
Thank
that
you,
point
Mr.
of
Chairman. I am more than willing to support your motion, so long as you add what is the most important point to me, to the neighbors, and to many others who abut or who are concerned about this in the third ward, in the city, for that matter. Nothing in your motion that I know of would address the first request that the city manager has asked us to approve. The city manager has asked us to let me read, please, so that I don't get it wrong. Quote, I am recommending that we inform the school, this is not a quote, but by implication, the school building committee and the school committee, that they can no longer add any newly excavated soil to the stockpile or anywhere else on the site. Councilor Segley has suggested that nothing is going to be added until perhaps April. Perhaps the mayor, or maybe the mayor, and this discussion has also indicated something of that nature. That's great. If they're not going to add anything to the stockpile, then they will not object to what the city manager is asking for. The manager is asking for our permission, the council's permission, to tell the school building committee and the school committee, no more dumping. If you are willing to add that component, the city manager's ask in there, I will vote for your requested amendment. If you are not willing to do that, I'm afraid I'm going to have to vote against your amendment and ask my colleagues to vote against the mayor's proposal as well, if and only if he is not willing to include that first request from the city manager. There's no question about it, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many abutters, neighbors, etc., that the most important thing that we can deal with tonight regarding what's before us is the ability of the city manager and all legal authority we have, if at all, but important that the city manager has the right, or that we give her the authority to tell the school building committee, no more dumping.
Mr. Chair, I don't think your amendment said that. I mean,
You didn't follow.
I mean,
Mr. Chairman, with all due
just-
respect, Councilor Segley, you didn't follow what I said
I know,
At all.
I know, I followed exactly what you said, but I don't think that the amendment says no dumping, because we've just said that there was gonna have to be some nominal dirt taken from that site because of the utilities. So, but what what my impression of the motion is that it's to charge the school building committee with coming up with a plan for dumping.
Madam, Mr.
Am I-
Chairman,
am I-
Madam Vice Chair,
Well, let me just jump in and
no,
clarify.
no, Mr. Chairman, I
Yeah.
have the floor, please. I respect your opinions, but I need to clarify, as this was directed at my comments. My suggestion was exactly the opposite, if you will. I suggested that that the chair did not have in his proposed amendment the allowance for the city manager to say no more dumping. So I understand what you're saying, Councilor Segley, but I don't think I could have been any more clear. I will vote against the mayor's amendment if it does not include allowing the city manager to say no more dumping. If it includes that, I'm all for it. Everything you have said and the mayor has said is correct. If it does not include this council giving permission to the city manager to tell the schools no more dumping, then I will not vote for the amendment proposed by the mayor.
Solicitor Bean,
Yes.
explain to us the logic behind why, if this time, and if the city manager instead of the city council tells the school building committee no more dumping, that they will be legally required to follow that. 'Cause I think you hinted that there might be a change in circumstances that would give that legal weight.
I think the most obvious one, if we could show that they were violating the DEM permit in terms of the dumping. Or that, well, that would be the most obvious one. And I think the one we would have the strongest legal basis to tell them to stop. I don't know that to be the case. We should probably look into that and see if they still are within the confines, what they plan to do within the DEM permit. And I mean, I think the nature of the motion is that we would have these consultants in who could address a lot of those hazardous material conditions, hazardous waste, anything along those lines, our own consultants, and not rely on the school on a lot of this. So it's hard to sit there and say, you know, we can tell them to stop, and if they don't stop, then you get into a typical falling of bluffs that you see in a lot of litigation, a lot of pre-litigation relationships between parties.
Mr. Chair.
Councilor McCalla.
Thank you, Solicitor Bien, and thank you, Interim City Manager Laura Citron, as well for making your recommendations. It certainly has been a very spirited conversation that we were all very engaged in. I think just listening to the city solicitor's recommendation, I am okay with doing the original proposal that Mayor Kamsi Voravong had suggested as well. It doesn't seem like we might, just simply for the fact that under the first ask, it doesn't seem like we quite have jurisdiction at this point to be able to make a recommendation. And I'm happy to support. I think it's reasonable to ask the school building committee to come up with a plan. I think that it's reasonable to also hire a legal and environmental consultant to be able to help in this very unique situation. And I understand as well that this is a decision that's happens once every maybe 50 years. And so we are charting in uncharted territories. And I think even just remembering for this history as well, I mean, in 2019, this council also took upon the strategy of being able to execute a conveyance tax at that point in order to help address the future needs of the schools. We saw that coming. We wanted to be able to come up with a way that was a way that wouldn't necessarily burden residents, but the reality of the situation is, it's true. I rewatched the tape back in 2019. So, but I think Mayor Kamsi-Voravong, that your requests and your amendments are reasonable. I'm fine with supporting the amendments on the floor.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Council Romley.
I think one of the general sentiments this council is feeling is disgust. And I want to commend and recognize Councilor Carlin for being intensely focused on the residents in this neighborhood that are affected by this dirt pile, and the passion that you've shown for right and wrong here. When we last approved additional monies, the approximately $6 million the city council approved to ensure that the Rogers High School could be finished on time, one of the things I said during that period and during that discussion, I want to repeat, we got to build the school. We cannot allow this school to fail. We cannot allow the incredible liability to not be reimbursed, because that turns the math completely upside down for this city and punishes our tax-paying revenue base even worse. What I also said at that time is, while I support finding ways to get this building done, we need to grapple with the fact that this was not, at that time, I think we were quoted as about 114 million. And I think during that discussion, I said, get ready for this to be a $140 million project or a $150 million project. I'm not happy that I was right, but I'm not surprised in any way. This project has been one of the most obscenely mismanaged projects I've ever seen, and I'm in the construction business. One of the things I support very strongly that I think our mayor hit on here is accountability. Who's responsible for us finding out right now that this soil is too silty? And I can tell you as an engineer, that ain't a sophisticated test for soil. A good structural site engineer literally can pick soil up in his hand and squeeze it and tell you if this soil is junk or if it's something that can be used for load bearing fill. So the fact that something so basic has been missed implies perhaps there was some malfeasance here. You know, I am loath to accuse our peers in the school committee for intentional malfeasance here, but clearly there are some contractors very well paid that I have already felt in prior meetings were not honest with us. And I fully support the mayor's suggestion that we need to be deploying legal resources to understand who is contractually liable for not having had this information a year ago or 6 months ago. It is very, very easy to determine if soil is usable for fill when you're pulling it out of the ground. So I share the disgust. You know, I'm going to support. I'm going to support the mayor's motion. At the same time, I do think that Councillor Carlin's motion is worthy of discussion as a standalone, in that perhaps we bifurcate these motions such that we can isolate the sort of basic actions that the city council would like the administration to undertake that do not halt construction. And that we separate the debate on the dirt pile itself, because I think they're lumping those together without further information. If we say not a single teaspoonful of dirt goes on that dirt pile, if that directly leads to the failure of the school, we need to know. We need to know.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes, Mr. Carlin.
Councilor Romley, thank you very much. I would certainly support a standalone vote on what you just suggested, and a standalone vote on what is before us. That is to say, the mayor's suggested amendment. I can't do this without permission from the sponsor, the mayor, but I would ask consideration that my standalone motion that I will make regarding the council giving authority to the city manager to tell them no more dumping, I would ask that that be voted on first. Then, regardless of the outcome of that vote, well, not regardless of the outcome of that vote, I'm sorry. I would hope that the outcome of that vote would be a yes. And if it is a yes, I'd be more than happy to then support the mayor's motion on the table. But again, I can only do so if the mayor yields to my motion first.
I would like my motion as presented, voted on in the order that's been presented. I'm not opposed to bifurcating the two into two.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Council Carlin.
I will respectfully vote no on your amendment because it does not include the city manager being able to tell the school department per the council, no more dumping. I trust, respect, and love all of you, but I have no guarantee that should I vote yes on this, my subsequent motion to instruct the manager per the council to do that will be voted yes on. So I will not be voting for your amendment, and I would ask that without such a guarantee from the mayor regarding his motion, I would ask you to vote this motion down.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Councilor Holder.
in reality, whether we tell them to keep dumping or not dump, if we don't have any, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Solicitor, but I don't think we have a leg to stand on by telling them no dumping. If they're still following the ride rules.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, maybe.
In reality, you know?
Leg to stand on, but no, we have very limited authority to tell them what to do if they're otherwise permitted to do that.
Right. And it's too bad that even if we want them to stop dumping and they continue to do so, we don't have anything to say to go forward and tell them to stop. So
Mr. Chairman.
It's unfortunate.
Councilor
for the
Carlin.
neighbors especially.
Thank you, Council Holder. Why is this before us then? The request is before us from the city manager to, in fact, allow the city manager to tell that to the school building committee. I don't understand why we have something before us then. Where the city manager, I mean, did the city manager and the legal counsel not talk to each other?
Mr. Chair, I mean, we also had a resolution a few months back that we passed, asked them to stop dumping in that, but basically laughed in our face and just kept on going the next day.
Mr. Chair, this is a new action item before us. And believe me when I tell you, I have 100% support of our administration and our city solicitors department, but there's a new request before us per the city manager asking us to give her permission to do this. I
Mr.
don't
Chair.
understand why it's on the agenda if we all know, or I don't know, but if it's been determined that this is nonsense, we can't do it, the school department can do whatever the hell it wants, why put it on the agenda?
Council McCallum.
I want to call the vote.
Me too.
It's been a motion. It's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Can you repeat the motion, please? Restate it.
Happily. Three-part motion. First part, that we request that the school building committee refrain from adding material amounts of dirt to this dirt pile. And until they come up with a plan for the ultimate use of soil, both in the dirt pile and additional soil, which may be added to the stockpile. Second, that the city and the city manager be authorized to retain both an environmental consultant and legal counsel specializing in this type of work to specifically look at the history behind the landfill, our obligations to remediate that landfill, and to help us come up with a plan as to how to go about remediating that landfill. And the third is that in that same vein, the city manager be authorized to retain counsel, legal counsel, to specifically look at the contractual obligations, legal liability, and indemnification of parties who may be held responsible for the advice provided to date with regards to the dirt pile.
And I have one more question for the solicitor. In what name is the DEM permit?
I don't know. I'm sure the school department applied for it. But we are under that. If there are any issues of environmental nature of hazardous substances, we as the owner, like any owner of property, is going to be ultimately responsible.
I guess I'm a little confused. Don't we own the schools?
We own the,
I know they're managed by, they have their own books and everything else, but ultimately, wouldn't the permit be in the name of the cities?
well, you gotta look at Title 16 requires that once we dedicate that property to school use, that
Okay,
it's the school committee
okay,
and the schools that have control over that. And the whole process under the Department of Ed for the construction of these buildings
mm.
has the schools as the applicant responsible for the building of it. So
I don't know. I guess the confusion comes in because school committee, and they've directly said it to me. Oh, it's your responsibility. You got to clean it up. So it does add to the confusion. I just
read
want,
those comments, and they're basically referring to the fact that if something happens on that property, DEM is going to be coming to us.
right.
What we do in response to anyone else who's responsible for that is another story.
Okay.
DEM, the governing authorities like the EPA they're not going to get into that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
We good? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Motion's carried.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Counselor Carlin.
regarding item 15, communications from the city manager, I would like to amend the item, and my proposal, an oral amendment, is that the Newport City Council give the city manager the authority to communicate to the Newport School Building Committee and to the Newport School Committee that they can no longer add any newly excavated soil to the stockpile or anywhere on the site. I take that, Mr. Chairman, directly from the communication that's before us, and I ask for a second.
Second.
Comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have no further comments. I'm sure, well, I'm not sure, but there may perhaps be, and we omitted this. I apologize. I didn't catch it regarding the last vote. We should probably ask for public input if there is any.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Counselor McKellar.
sorry, I'm not clear on what the motion is and where are.
Sorry,
did we take a
so
vote,
we
or-
passed the motion that I had proposed. We are
Okay.
now to Counselor Carlin's proposal to enable the city manager to direct the schools to stop, the school building committee to halt the
Okay,
addition
so
of
we're
any
still
additional
on
soil.
50.
Yes, still on item 15.
Got it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just so it's been a long night, I appreciate my colleagues and everybody else's patience. If I might, since it's my motion, voting yes on this will allow our city manager, as she has asked for permission to do so, to tell the school building committee and the school committee no more dumping on the site. Voting no on my amendment will mean that the school department and the school building committee is free to do as they want, or specifically, we are not giving the authority to the city manager to say no more dumping. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Counselor Carlin, a question for you in your motion. Under what terms do you believe that this motion will carry more weight than the last resolution, which this entire council, not entire, but which the council did support and which the school building committee blatantly disregarded?
Apples and oranges. One is what I would have supported should you have supported what I'm proposing now. The most important thing to the community that I represent, the nearby community, the abutters, the neighbors, and everybody else I've mentioned throughout the night, the most important item of concern to them is no more dumping. I'm suggesting we give the city manager the authority, speaking on behalf of the council, to tell that to the school building committee. Your proposed action, which the council passed 6-1, did not include that authority. It includes many very good things, but not that.
Just point of clarification, is the priority of the residents no additional dumping to the site, or is it the removal and remediation of the stockpile as it exists on that site?
The immediate proposal before us from the city manager by way of 15 is, item 15 is the concern right now of the residents. It's a public document whereby anybody, the residents, neighbors, abutters, everybody I've mentioned again, can see that the suggestion is that there will possibly be an addition of 2/3 more dumping to the existing pile. Their immediate concern is no more dumping. We can deal with the other items per your very good resolution at a point going forward. I'm just asking my colleagues to support me to allow the manager to tell these guys, no more dumping.
Mr. Chair.
Councilor Romley.
Is there something wrong with public?
So I seconded this motion to allow discussion on it because I think it's worth discussion. I think it's worth debate amongst this council and the public. This really boils down to, are we going to kick the can down the curb to really figure out what our costs are? Are we going to put our foot down now and demand to know what the ultimate costs are going to be? Look, I'm committed to getting the school building done. At the same time, I'm filled with utter disgust at the process we've been through. And at the end of the day, this is going to come back to the city. Okay. The last prediction I gave that this is going to be $140 to $150 million school. It is panning out that way, and this will come back to the city. And it is a really horrible way that this project has been managed to leave us with this, because I can't see any way of us escaping the costs of what's happened here. So really the question is, do we give them more leeway so that we find out what the costs are in another 3 months or 6 months, or do we put our foot down now and force an understanding of what these true costs are going to be? You know, one of the drums I've been beating as a freshman city councilor and learning my way around the city is that I believe the city of Newport is structurally underfunded, that we do not have enough money to do all the things that we need to do. And the way we've been getting by is by deferring a lot of capital investment needs and infrastructure needs. The school is one of them. I think this situation is painful for us because we don't really have the money right now. It's not there. If the money were there, and this city was flush with revenue, I don't think this council would be reacting the way it is. This really is just reinforcing the need for this city to raise another $5 to $10 million of revenue, and not on the backs of our residents, not on the backs of our 25,000 people who actually live here. Let's get it from the tourists and the visitors. I think we're going to have a lot more discussion on this in the coming months. The ultimate solution here, we got to find the money, and we got to find it from folks who have it, that are passing through our city, the 5 million visitors that we have every year, and not our 25,000 residents. Regarding the motion on the table, I can support it, knowing that likely it has no teeth, and is much more of a ceremonial statement from this, or symbolic statement from this council. I would much rather see the amendment have some language in it saying, stop dumping, or give us the plan to complete the school, that involves this thing not increasing by another 2/3 in size. I would love to see it worded that way. Those are my comments.
Additional comments from the council?
Are we going to open up to the public?
Yeah, any members of the public wish to speak on this?
They're tired.
Tired? Just get started.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chair. Yeah.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Councilor Holder.
I just want to say, for the record, I'm highly disappointed that there is no one from the school building committee here to talk about this as well.
Lynn's here.
Well, I'm on the
sorry.
school building committee, and so is Mr. Carlin. So, and I go to every meeting.
I'm
I
sorry.
think,
Let me say that somebody that's not on the council, specifically the co-chairs of the school building committee, that refused to come to this meeting tonight.
Mr. Chair, I believe that Councilor Romley's, the way he stated the motion, I would agree with. At least put it out there, let us vote on it. If they choose to not follow up on it, I think we'd know exactly where we stand. But at least, it's in their lap and not ours.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Carlin.
Thank you, Councilor Romley. Thank you, Councilor Napolitano. I appreciate those words. Let's give it a shot.
Just to clarify, the motion is to ask the school building committee to cease the addition of soil to the stockpile until a plan is delivered for how to deal with the stockpile, or is it just to cease additional dumping, period?
No, neither one of those is correct.
No.
What the motion is to give the city manager the authority on behalf of the council to speak to the school building committee and the Newport School Committee and tell them to stop dumping.
And Mr. Carlin, what is the plan then to keep the school moving forward?
As I told you earlier, and I'm a member and you are a member of the committee, I take very little responsibility because, and I'll be less than candid, or I'll be candid, I'll be less than polite at this point. I don't think they, know the difference between their ass and their elbow on this stuff. I no longer have any confidence in this school building committee.
Well,
It's not my responsibility to come up with the answer to your question. There's a proposal before you that I think will be very effective, and I'm asking for your support. Vote no if you don't like it.
Point of clarification on this question. Are we just beating our chest here to make ourselves feel good, or are
Yes.
you prepared to ask the city solicitor to litigate our authority in the event that the school building committee disregards our directive?
And I also, since, all the gloves are coming off, I feel like I'm in an episode of Star Wars and I'm watching, I clearly understand who the Jedi and the Jedi like knights are at this point. Like, this is so ridiculous.
Who's the Sith?
A specific episode?
Exactly. All of them.
Councilor Romley, can you restate
Yeah,
the motion that
I'm going to
you-
make a motion to amend Councilor Carlin's motion, which is to use Counselor Carlin's language, which is to authorize the city manager to engage with the school committee and demand
Building committee.
school building committee and demand that any dumping stop, or that they give us a plan on how they are going to complete this project without materially increasing the size of the dump, the dirt pile from where it is right now.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Councilor Carlin.
Thank you again, Mark, Councilor Romney. I appreciate that very much. But for the aforementioned reasons that I was, pretty direct on, I just don't trust them. I cannot have any faith and confidence in them that we give them opportunity one or opportunity two. Please help me out here. Let's just give the city manager the authority she was asking for in the first place, and let's see where it goes from there. I mean, these residents, these folks are so frustrated. Please, and may I, well, that's it. Thank you.
And Councilor Romley, just to your point, that actually is what the first provision in the prior motion stated.
Yeah.
No material additions until a plan is delivered.
Okay.
Okay. Look, if we're not prepared to actually thoroughly litigate words that we put out there, which of course would result in a situation where it is the city essentially suing the school building committee, racking up a legal tab rather than focusing on a plan to move forward and figure out how we fix this problem, I can't support this, right? And so for that reason, while I credit you for your advocacy on behalf of the residents here, I'm not interested in making a feel-good statement. I want to figure out how we solve this issue, and so I'll be voting against this. Any additional comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm going to
Aye.
vote.
Mr. Chairman, roll call vote, please.
Of course. Councilor Napolitano, or sorry,
And
leave it to you to do the roll call.
I'm sorry.
This
Mr.
is-
Chairman, may I just, a show of hands for yes and a show of hands for no. Maybe we start with yes, please.
Yes?
Yes.
No? Okay, motion fails.
Okay. Moving on. You're recusing.
So
no,
we're through six.
We have to, did we take the action item 6226? Did we vote on that?